If we look into the depth of divine intention, we must first detach ourselves from the human desire for immediate justice. Human beings often interpret justice through the lens of pain and reaction. Someone wrongs us, we want correction. Someone causes chaos, we want punishment. Someone betrays truth, we want them silenced or destroyed. But divine justice is not forged in the same fire. It does not mirror the image of the human heart. It is carved out of cosmic patience, the kind of patience that watches a seed fall into darkness and waits through drought and storm for it to bloom. When we ask, why doesn't God kill Satan, we are often unconsciously projecting our own definitions of control and justice onto the divine. We want to believe that to be all-powerful is to end anything undesirable with a snap. But power that is guided by wisdom does not act out of emotion, it acts out of understanding. Divine justice does not only punish, it teaches, it reveals, it balances. It does not merely destroy the enemy, it uses the enemy to show the strength of what is righteous. Satan, by his own rebellion, entered into a cosmic court, and divine justice operates more like a sacred process than a blunt weapon. It is governed by laws that God himself does not break. For justice to be true, it cannot skip the process. Even when God sees the beginning and the end, the process must still unfold, not for his sake, but for the sake of all witnesses. Angels, humans, and even the fallen, divine justice is not about swift erasure, it is about undeniable clarity. If God were to eliminate Satan in an instant, what would be learned? Who would grow? Which hearts would be tested? What wisdom would be gained? It would close the story before the characters understood the meaning. Justice is not always in punishment. Sometimes it is in revelation. God allows the presence of evil so that its path can be seen, its fruits can be tasted, and its emptiness can be known. And once known, those who observe are no longer naive. They become aware. This awareness is part of the divine justice, because once a soul has walked through deception and recognized truth, that soul stands on ground that is unshakable. Justice also includes the law of consequence. What is sown will be reaped. That reaping is not a sudden blow. It is often a long shadow that trails behind actions, revealing their true cost. Satan's path must unravel itself. His rebellion must reach its natural end. Not because God cannot end him, but because that end must come through the very rebellion he chose. In this way, divine justice is both a mirror and a path. It allows the wrongdoer to walk further and further into the result of their own choices until even those who once followed can no longer deny what is true. If God ended Satan before his lies bore fruit, how would the angels who followed him understand their mistake? How would humans recognize the cost of deception? How would creation learn? Even within human legal systems, we understand this principle in fragments. A good judge does not only punish, he weighs evidence, reveals intention, and ensures that everyone watching knows why the verdict was given. The point is not just to punish the criminal, but to teach the law, to show the line between right and wrong. Divine justice follows the same pattern, though on a far more eternal scale. Furthermore, divine justice is often mistaken as weakness because it is quiet, but silence is not absence. Delay is not powerlessness. The justice of God is so complete, so precise, that it does not rush, it unfolds, it allows space for repentance, for recognition, for realization. Satan was not created evil, he became it. His fall was a choice. Justice, therefore, cannot merely erase him. It must honor the freedom that enabled his fall, and in honoring that freedom, show every living being what such freedom misused can lead to. This form of justice is not aimed at destroying one being, it is aimed at educating an entire creation. The lesson is not just about Satan. The lesson is about pride, rebellion, autonomy, consequence, truth, deception, and ultimately, about love that does not force but waits. God does not fear Satan. He does not need to prove his authority by instant destruction. His authority is already established, not by domination, but by the fact that even rebellion itself must serve his plan. And that plan includes the slow unraveling of evil so that its end is not just deserved, but undeniable to all who see it. When considering the question of why God does not simply ban fallen angels, one must begin by understanding the sacred architecture of creation, and at its core lies the mystery of free will. Free will is not a feature added for diversity or complexity. It is the very fabric upon which the spiritual journey is built. Without free will, obedience becomes automation, worship becomes programming, and love becomes coercion. God did not desire worshippers who act merely out of compulsion or survival. He created beings, angels, and humans alike, capable of choosing. It is in this ability to choose that both glory and tragedy are born. Satan, originally a being of light, was not created to fall. He fell by decision, by gradual corruption, by choosing pride over surrender, self over service. The same is true for the other angels who followed him. Their rebellion was not forced upon them, it was embraced by their own will. Now, if God were to reverse their existence or destroy them simply because of their decision, it would be a violation of a deeper law he himself established. Free will is not a gift that can be revoked without undoing the very structure of moral existence. To erase Satan for using the free will he was given would be to deny the meaning of that gift entirely. God's omnipotence is not in question, but power governed by wisdom does not contradict its own principles. If God could simply remove every being that chose wrongly, then what becomes of choice? What becomes of the spiritual weight carried by every decision? In such a world, goodness would no longer be virtuous. It would be mandatory. There would be no meaning in resisting temptation, no strength found in overcoming darkness, because the darkness would never be allowed to exist long enough to test anyone. In giving Satan the space to act, God is not condoning his choices. He is respecting the law of free will. To understand why free will cannot be taken back, we must look at the consequences of such an action. If God were to end the existence of the rebellious, all remaining beings would live with a fear of elimination, not a love for righteousness. They would obey not because they trust, but because they fear erasure. That is not divine harmony, it is divine dictatorship. Love cannot exist in such a climate. Trust cannot grow in such soil, and the kingdom of God is not built on submission through terror, but on allegiance through understanding. The dignity of free will is so immense that even its misuse is not enough for God to undo it. And because of that, Satan continues to exist, not as a mistake, not as an oversight, but as a reality allowed within the laws of creation. His presence is tolerated, not out of weakness, but out of reverence for the gift he was given. The same gift that humans carry, the same gift that makes saints possible. Without free will, there would be no Lucifer, but also no prophets, no martyrs, no lovers of truth who sacrifice their desires for what is holy. God's unwillingness to destroy Satan is not a sign that he cannot, but that he will not violate the spiritual economy he has put in place. He does not revoke gifts to fix consequences. Instead, he allows those consequences to unfold so that all may witness the contrast between the misuse of freedom and its proper expression. The story of Satan is not simply the story of rebellion, it is the story of what happens when a being uses a divine gift against its giver. This is why Earth is not isolated from this reality. Humanity too stands under the same principle. Every decision made in secret, every thought entertained, every act of defiance or surrender, all of it carries meaning because it is chosen. Without Satan, there would still be temptation. But with Satan, the consequences of a choice stand in clear view. He represents not just the opposition, but the living result of corrupted will. And yet, even he is not removed, because God does not erase the bearer of a gift simply for rejecting the giver. This is the deep tension between justice and mercy, between judgment and patience. The very breath Satan continues to draw is permitted by the same God he once served. But approval, it is the cost of honoring the freedom he gave. And though that freedom can be misused, it cannot be revoked. If it could, then all worship would collapse into fear, and all virtue would collapse into programming. The universe would become a machine, not a garden of souls. God's refusal to destroy Satan is not a limit to his power. It is a testimony to the sacredness of the freedom he bestows on every being, even those who use that freedom to oppose him. In the heart of spiritual understanding, there is a profound truth that many overlook. The purpose of opposition is not to destroy the good, but to reveal it. In a world of constant comfort, goodness often becomes invisible. When there is no struggle, strength is untested. When there is no deception, truth has no contrast. It is precisely the existence of darkness that makes the presence of light visible. Without resistance, growth does not occur. Without friction, fire does not ignite. This is the reality behind the continued existence of Satan and the fallen angels. Their presence is not an accident. It is permitted because through their presence, deeper truths are unveiled. Many imagine that a perfect world must be one where no evil exists. But perfection in divine terms does not mean sterilization. It means harmony, and harmony includes tension. It includes a balance of forces, a rhythm between stillness and motion, between silence and sound, between clarity and mystery. Satan, as the embodiment of rebellion, is not outside the scope of divine awareness. He is functioning within the allowed range of opposition. He is not unchained in chaos. He is permitted within limits, and in this permission, the deeper qualities of creation can be known. When the soul is never tempted, what value does loyalty carry? When truth is never challenged, how deep is its meaning? When there is no sorrow, can joy be fully appreciated? The world is shaped in contrasts. It is the night that makes sunrise so powerful. It is pain that gives healing its weight. And so it is the opposition of beings like Satan that gives the soul its battlefield, a space where choices are no longer theoretical, but lived. It is in the presence of resistance that belief becomes conviction. The fallen angels are not merely a cosmic threat. They are a mirror. They reflect what pride looks like when it grows unchecked. They show the decay that comes from separating power from humility. Their actions are destructive, yes, but their consequences are instructive. Every soul that turns away from their whispers gains not just victory, but understanding. Spiritual truth is not inherited through comfort. It is built through endurance. The trials that arise from the presence of evil allow something sacred to develop: the strength of character, the awareness of weakness, the yearning for something higher. A lotus grows from the mud, not in spite of it, but because of it. Its beauty is amplified by the contrast of its origin. In the same way, the beauty of spiritual realization is born through struggle. Satan does not rob humanity of divinity. He presents the contrast that allows divinity to be chosen. Without that choice, and there is no transformation, and without transformation, there is no journey, creation is not static. It is not a painting on a wall. It is alive, breathing, unfolding. And part of that unfolding includes allowing darkness to emerge so that the light within may awaken in response. The existence of Satan also serves to awaken awareness. His presence forces human beings to question, to observe, to recognize the subtle pull of falsehood in its many forms. Without deception, discernment becomes a dormant faculty. But with deception active in the world, discernment must sharpen, wisdom must deepen, and clarity must evolve. Every time a soul sees through a lie, that soul grows. Every time a being resists selfishness in favor of compassion, a silent battle is won. And it is these inner victories that build the invisible temple of spiritual maturity. Even in ancient traditions, it was understood that the spiritual path is not about eliminating obstacles. It is about moving through them. A sword is not forged in still water. It is tempered in flame. In the same way, the soul becomes resilient not through safety, but through exposure, not through avoidance, but through confrontation. This is why the presence of Satan, though terrifying to the untrained heart, becomes meaningful to the awakened mind. He does not control the outcome. He is merely the force that tests its truth. Moreover, his continued existence teaches humility. It reminds even the most righteous that vigilance is necessary, that pride can return, that no being, no matter how high, is immune to the fall. Satan was not born from corruption. He was born from light, from closeness to God, from divine privilege. And still, he fell. This lesson echoes in every soul. Do not take your light for granted. Do not become arrogant in your proximity to the sacred. Stay grounded, stay aware, stay humble. The path of spiritual clarity is not free of shadows. It is made clearer because of them. In the dance between darkness and light, the soul learns to see not just with the eyes, but with the heart. This seeing becomes insight. This insight becomes strength, and this strength becomes freedom. The freedom to choose the light, not because it was the only option, but because it was understood, felt, tested, and chosen with full awareness of its worth. When one reflects deeply on the human condition, it becomes evident that Earth is not merely a place of beauty or suffering, not simply a planet suspended in the vastness of the cosmos, but an arena, a sacred field, a battleground where unseen realities take form through visible choices. This world is not the end, it is the middle. It is the stage where the soul is neither in its original purity nor in its final perfection, but in its unfolding. And for that unfolding to be meaningful, there must be contrast, there must be friction, there must be testing. God, in his infinite wisdom, has not made Earth a place of paradise. Not yet. He has made it a place of potential. It is not where perfection resides, but where it is pursued. And pursuit requires difficulty. It requires ambiguity. It requires the presence of something that challenges the soul's direction. This is why Satan and the fallen angels are allowed to exist, not because they are victorious, not because they are beyond reach, but because they serve a purpose within the design of testing. Their presence introduces tension, and in tension, the soul either rises or retreats. The battlefield is not external, though it appears that way. The true battlefield is the heart. Each soul walks through life carrying a silent war between desire and discipline, between impulse and intention, between the pull of lower instincts and the call of higher truth. Without Satan's whispers, these battles would not arise. Without his lies, truth would remain unexposed. Without temptation, the purity of resistance would remain theoretical. It is because of the testing that the soul awakens. It is because of resistance that the soul becomes aware of its strength. God does not test to destroy. He tests to reveal. not to himself, for he already knows, but to the one being tested. A person may think they are faithful until they are tempted. They may believe they are patient until they are provoked. They may speak of love until they are betrayed. Only through trial does the soul understand itself. Only through pressure does its true composition emerge. And for these trials to be authentic, there must be freedom, and for freedom to be meaningful, there must be real choices, not illusions. Satan represents the reality of that opposing choice. He is the voice of the false path, the alternative road, the easy way that promises gain but hides loss. Yet even in this, there is permission. He does not act beyond bounds. He is not sovereign. He is a tool unknowingly fulfilling the will of the one who still holds all things. In the grand architecture of testing, even the tempter is not free to act without allowance. He tempts, but he cannot force. He deceives, but he cannot possess. His power lies not in domination, but in persuasion. The battlefield of earth is precisely this, a field where persuasion collides with perception and where clarity is forged from confusion. Earth is the middle ground between heaven and hell, between the origin of the soul and its eternal destination. What happens here is not just survival, it is shaping, it is refinement, it is the slow and often painful revealing of what the soul truly seeks. For some, the testing reveals a hunger for truth. For others, a thirst for power. The fallen angels participate in this testing, not because they are winning, but because their presence is useful. Like weights that strengthen muscle, they oppose so that resistance can grow. Like storms that shape mountains, they come not to destroy, but to awaken the need for shelter, the cry for guidance, the search for light. God does not remove the opposition because the lesson is not complete. If earth were made into a sanctuary free of trial, what would the soul become? It would stagnate, it would drift. Comfort breeds complacency, and certainty removes the need for trust. Faith, in its truest form, is born when nothing is certain and the heart still chooses to believe. Love, in its purest form, is proven when betrayal is possible and still the soul remains loyal. These virtues cannot exist in an environment without opposition. The battlefield gives rise to the warrior. The arena produces those who know why they stand. The fallen angels play their part even if they do not realize it. Their rebellion, their schemes, their distortions, all of it becomes part of the grand testing of souls, and not all fall. Some rise, some awaken. Some, by facing the darkness, discover a light inside them that they did not know existed. And this is the sacred paradox of the testing. The enemy, allowed to act, becomes the catalyst for the soul's ascent. The presence of Satan on earth is not an oversight. It is part of the design, a design that values genuine love over robotic obedience, a design that favors transformation over comfort, a design where the path to the divine is not paved with ease, but with trials that purify and choices that reveal. The battlefield is not chaos, it is a sacred place where every soul is given the opportunity to choose who they truly are. Human perception of time is short-sighted. It is bound by seconds, dates, months and years, all measured against the rising and setting of the sun. A lifetime is seen as long, a century is seen as ancient, but from the perspective of the eternal, what is 1,000 years? What is 1,000,000? In the divine scale, time is not simply linear progression. It is a vessel for transformation, a field in which hidden realities are slowly brought into view. When people ask why God does not destroy Satan now, they often do so while measuring God's decisions against their own impatient sense of time. But delay in divine terms is not denial. It is not evidence of weakness, nor is it neglect. Delay is often the quiet operation of wisdom beyond comprehension. The continued existence of Satan is not a mistake in the divine plan. It is part of a timeline that is not rushed, a timeline that allows every detail to unfold with purpose. Just as a tree is not forced to grow faster than its roots can handle, the events of divine justice are not accelerated to satisfy human discomfort. If God acts too soon, truth might remain hidden. If he acts too late, love might be lost. But God does not miss the perfect moment. What appears as hesitation is in fact perfect timing. What looks like inaction is preparation. What seems like tolerance is often mercy, not mercy for the deceiver, but mercy for those still being awakened by the deception. The story is not over. It is still being written, thread by thread, and the presence of Satan, as terrible as it may seem, still serves a role in that story. Not because evil is approved, but because its existence sharpens awareness and maturity in ways comfort never could. If Satan destroyed the moment he rebelled, the nature of his fall would not be understood by those who witnessed it. If the fallen angels were instantly removed, the subtle danger of pride, corruption, and ego would not have been fully revealed. Delay is the classroom of wisdom. Through time, truth becomes visible, consequences ripen, and no one is left with excuses. God's timing is not based on how loudly humanity pleads. It is based on what will bring the most clarity to the greatest number of souls. His plan involves the exposure of every lie, the exhaustion of every false promise, the collapse of every illusion. But illusions do not collapse until they have fully played out. A lie must be lived long enough to prove itself empty. Evil must be allowed to flower so that all may see the fruit it bears. If Satan were eliminated today, many would mourn not the deceiver, but the false hope he sold. They would not understand why he was judged. They would still believe in the illusion. So God waits not to protect Satan, but to protect souls from misunderstanding. Time allows for process. It allows for redemption. Even those who once walked in darkness may awaken. Even those who were once deceived may find clarity. And this clarity cannot be forced. It must be realized. The delay of God's judgment is often the space in which people discover their deepest truths. They wrestle, they question, they fall, they rise. Through this slow journey, their souls are carved with understanding that could not be given, only earned. To eliminate evil too early would be to interrupt this transformation. To remove the opposition before the lesson is complete would be to undermine the growth of every student of life. The mystery of divine delay also teaches trust. It asks the soul to believe in justice, even when it is not visible. To believe in protection, even when the danger remains. This kind of trust is not passive. It is active. It is a spiritual discipline to hold on to faith when the enemy seems to thrive. It is a form of inner strength to say, I do not understand the delay, but I trust the hand that holds time. This trust is not weakness. It is not blindness. It is the strength to remain still while storms rage, knowing that the storm itself is not beyond control. Satan's time is not eternal. It is permitted, not permanent. The ancient scriptures speak of a set hour, a measured span, a time appointed for his end, but that hour will not come at the demand of men. It will come when all has been revealed, when all hearts have been exposed, when the line between truth and falsehood is so clear that no soul can claim confusion. In this, the delay serves justice, not hinders it. It ensures that when judgment comes, it is not just punishment, it is proof. And that proof will silence all deception, not through violence, but through clarity. So the delay continues not as an act of powerlessness, but as an extension of purpose. In this slow unfolding, the soul is tested, purified, and brought to its final choice. And in the end, every being, angelic or human, will know that the delay was not because God could not act sooner, but because he would not act with completing the full revelation of truth.